Hey guys, welcome to my channel. My name's Laura and this is Evelyn Art. So I really wanted to call this video my artistory, like a pun on art history and my artist story. Every time I recorded the voiceover for this video, I would honestly get really bored halfway through while I was editing. It was 47 minutes long and I was like, nobody wants to sit for 47 minutes and hear me talk. So I am giving you guys the abridged version of my history as an artist with the purpose of hopefully encouraging you in whatever you are meant to do. So while I do this, I will be painting a really sweet memory of mine in my sketchbook using my Hemi gouache paints, and I will talk more about that towards the end of the video. So, flashback to little 6-year-old Laura. I was a prophetess, right? I even knew I would have my signature curly red hair. I truly always wanted to be an artist ever since I can remember, but I was a highly ambitious kid, thinking that I could also be a scientist, actor, archaeologist, the age 16, which, not to brag, but I did accomplish that one, and more. But lo, the one consistent aim I had was simply to grow up and paint whenever I wanted to. Out of all of my studies, art was certainly the most intuitive to me, and it also seemed to be affirmed the most. As a kid, I was always looking to the grown-ups in my life to affirm my skills or talents and, what was cool about me. So when I was little, it seemed like a no-brainer that I would just grow up and actually be an artist. What that deference can do to a child's growing consciousness, though, is kind of interesting. So you see, what this story is really about is imposter syndrome. So let me know if you can relate. As a kid, everyone tells you that you can do anything. But by the time that you make it to high school, the concern starts showing up. Like, adults in your life are thinking, oh, you still want to be an artist? Let's start thinking about some better options that would actually help you make a living. What's funny is that most people don't seem to consider the actual opportunities that are out there for artists. They just go with the age-old, you make it into the galleries or you starve trying. The opinions I heard definitely altered that childlike confidence I had previously had, and now I began to feel like it really was a very impractical choice for my future, but I still felt this draw to it. It didn't help that I was constantly getting the joke about being a starving artist, and it happened enough that I actually went all Fat Amy on it and started making the joke before the person I was talking to could.
What's your name?
Fat Amy.
You call yourself Fat Amy?
Yeah, so twig bitches like you don't do it behind my back.
I really began to believe it though. I feel like I spent my teen years preparing myself to be poor. At different times I even fantasized about living out of a van and just traveling and doing art, and while there still is some little hippie part of me that thinks that would be really awesome, I actually prefer to be grounded and just, travel anyway if I can, but anyway. I guess it's kind of funny to look back on conversations like my mom trying to encourage me to become a nurse or a pharmacist, or my high school guidance counselor encouraging me to learn to write code because I, quote, liked creative writing. I'm sorry, no. But, I know that they were just operating honestly out of their knowledge of the real world, which is a tough place, and their concern was truly for my well-being. But this is not a Disney Channel movie, and my mom was not trying to crush my dreams for the sake of her own. Every now and then I'd get a little boost of confidence from selling a painting at a yard sale or on eBay for $3 or to a friend, and I loved the feeling that someone else wanted what I made in their home. I spent my first 2 years of college without a major, feeling like I needed to make a really practical choice, but the first art history class I took just made me fall even more in love, and I went ahead and applied to the art program. I remember the first day I walked into the art building and seeing artwork everywhere, and people walking around carrying projects, and even one guy I remember was dressed up in costume for some presentation he was doing, and I just thought, I need to be here. This is where I fit, these are my people. This is where art is taken seriously. But here's where the imposter syndrome went into full bloom. Now that I was actually in art school, I could barely call myself an artist. People would be like, oh, your major is art, so you're an artist. And I'd be like, not sure I'm there yet. I don't really call myself that. Or they'd ask, what kind of art do you do? And I didn't know what they were asking. It's such a simple question, but I literally thought people were just constantly asking me to defend my legitimacy of like as an artist all the time. And I was still so new to this serious world of art too. I wasn't painting in my parents' bike shed anymore. I was painfully aware of all that I didn't know. And I had also come from a small private school where I was one of few visually creative people, at least in my age group, and thus I had a very inflated sense of my abilities until I saw that every other school's big fish had come to the same massive pond of a college that I was at, and I was now just one of the little tiny minnows who's like, am I even a fish in the first place? So there's that. Even though I had a really deep conviction that I was supposed to pursue art, I actually had no idea what that meant for me. But it seemed like the most practical answer to most people was to teach. But I really didn't want to teach. But you know, what's funny is lo and behold, my senior year of college, I started thinking and praying about it more and asking the Lord, like, okay, what's next? And he just puts it on my heart and says, you're gonna teach. And I'm like, okay, well, thank you for telling me now when I don't have my education degree. But, you know, one of the really infinitely cool things about God is how he knows us better than we do. And he provides for us. Not only did I get out of college, and by the end of that summer, I had a job teaching art at a school that only required me to have a 4-year degree in that field, but I also loved it. I was so excited to be there, and it was a really great season for me. It was about 5 years that I worked there, and it was freaking awesome. During the time that I was teaching, I began to be more inspired to just be more intentional about working on my own art. Turns out it is quite difficult once you're out of school and don't have an assignment prompting you every week. So that's where Instagram came in. It was 2016, if you can believe it, when I finally jumped on that train. That was the first year that I participated in Inktober, and now I just published a zine of my casually historical Inktober from 2020, where I drew great works of art from throughout history according to the prompts. That year, my friend Mary and I also did a show at Goodyear Arts, which is now in Camp North End in Charlotte, and it was cool because we just asked them if we could, and we had a quick interview, and they said yes. So, life lesson there, you have not because you ask not. As the years passed, I noticed a big jump in online artist videos, and it was watching people like Minnie Small and Hello Alice that got me on the train to begin sharing process as well as product. So, the more I shared, the more commission requests I started to get, and I began to make a little bit of side money. Side note, this was also the time when people started coming to me because they were seeing my work online and they started asking for free art, like tattoo designs and such, which Emily Artful has a great video on, which I will link below, on why it's really not a nice thing to ask of the artist in your life. Just because you enjoy doing what you do doesn't mean that you are required to do it for free. So, I'm not going to get into all of that, but check out her video if you can. It's funny to me that even at this point, doing commissions, out of college, working as an art teacher, I still had a difficult time calling myself an artist. I think in part because I ended up comparing myself to other artists and what their lives seem to look like, with big studios and lots of followers, endless commissions and brand deals, and meanwhile I was just struggling to run the small amount of business that I was getting. So I was selling my time and skills for pennies, and oftentimes even giving away art just because I was scared that someone would badmouth me for taking too long on a project. And just to let you guys know, this was like, I would maybe take 4 months on like a series of 3 paintings, which is honestly really good turnaround time when you're considering that I was also working a full-time job and taking care of a home. I mean, come on. At the root of a lot of this imposter syndrome that I was still dealing with, I found was the belief that I did not deserve to be an artist. It really is a privilege, and I understand that, but I felt like I needed to earn it. I don't know if I thought that I needed to suffer more before my work was worth anything, but I do know that if I look back at that time in my life from about 2015 to 2019, I was really the most insecure I'd ever been in the seriousness of my calling. I started to think it needed to just like sit in the background, and I really started to kind of erase myself in that way. I have since learned that this mindset is actually a predisposition of my personality if I'm not healthy. And this means spiritually, mentally, emotionally, everything. And at that time, I was in a very unhealthy relationship. And I only bring this up because it's so connected to my journey as an artist. So in this relationship, I really began to self-erase, which means I let important parts of myself hush and disappear slowly because they didn't seem valid or appreciated. And my heart became kind of a background personality trait, and I lost faith in myself. It seemed to me that being fully myself was a bit of an extravagance, and nobody was going to take me seriously, so I had to either make a lot of money to validate my art career, or I needed to let it just become a hobby and sit in the background and not get much time and attention. That all seems in a way perfectly practical. Except for what we've learned up to this point is not really, okay? Because when God gives you something to do, He doesn't say, only do it if you're 100% sure that you'll succeed. He just says, do it and trust me, I made you. So during this time, I felt invisible, I was depressed, it was a very, very unhealthy relationship, and I feel like my artwork showed that. Like it was technically improving because I was doing it a lot, but it felt very hollow. When that relationship ended, I began to realize a few things. Number one, I had been suppressing myself in order to please another person, and it made me incredibly depressed. I needed to start finally being okay with who I was unapologetically. Maybe you guys can identify with that. Number two, my art is actually a form of worship, so I want to be careful about what it focuses on. If I'm bringing something new into being, I want to make sure that it's something based in truth, beauty, and goodness, even if it's just super simple. I have learned that it is not a silly thing, nor is it an easy thing, to value truth, beauty, and goodness over cynicism and worldly security. Okay? God is my provider. And while I will all day long work a full-time job if I need to support what I actually want to do, I believe that at the end of the day, the Lord's going to take care of me. So that leads me into number 3/4, whatever the heck it is. God made me creative for a reason. He made me creative to share some of His heart with people. So I get to be who I am and encourage you to be who you are, because that's just the way He made us, and that's really where you're going to find the deepest joy. I know it's a privilege to do it, but that doesn't make it any less important. I've been lucky enough to have really great friends who encourage me constantly as an artist. I am consistently reminded that there is no shame in being who I am. Actually, since I married Maverick, I have had the privilege of working from home, taking commissions, writing books, and renovating our home, and I stay really busy, but most of all, I stay purposed, and that's really the point. So, I am not an imposter posing as an artist. I am an artist. It's not something I needed a college degree for or a card to carry in my wallet. I just am. And there will be seasons when I'm actively pursuing the business, but even when I'm not, I will still be an artist because that's who I was made to be. And that is what I want to say to you. You may not be an artist or even be very creative, but you are something, and whatever you are that. I know it sounds kind of goofy, but you have the freedom and ability to be who you are and do what you do unapologetically, even if it's in the off hours. I've had plenty of seasons where I was working full-time jobs and making my art afterwards. You can do it. I feel like the world would be a better place if people just were operating truly in their gifting. Okay, so this leads me to the painting. There are 5,835 photos and videos currently on my phone, many of which I snapped in a moment of inspiration or sentimentality, thinking that I'd eventually paint or draw the scene and make art out of a memory. Unposed, authentic kinds of moments. And there they are, still unpainted. Well, I'd personally like to improve on my follow-through skills, so today here we are painting a little snapshot from a night in January 2020 when my friend Miranda paid me a birthday visit in my little blue rented room and we painted together. We listened to my Sinatra records because, I'm not like other girls, and she painted Sinatra and I painted Ella Fitzgerald because we're unique. And we just reflected on the power of community and creators' need for one another. Now, Miranda is exactly the kind of artist that I'm tempted to compare myself to. She is an extremely skilled artist who can sketch out a ridiculously accurate portrait of someone in moments. But instead of thinking she's good and I'm not, I was just thinking we're so different, how fun. My style is very bright and soft and stylized, and accuracy is not my forte, but I'm okay with that. When we finished our paintings, we just sat and talked for a while, and she just took this picture of me sitting on the couch with our paintings. I'm actually very proud of how this painting here turned out, and it feels very true to the moment, but it's also very satisfying to look at as I'm still just learning how to paint with gouache paints, but I love how flat and opaque everything dried, so if you stuck around this long, thank you so much. I appreciate you spending a little bit of time with me today, and I hope you've been encouraged, and I hope that the rest of your day goes really well. And I also hope that you are out there living your best life, and if you are not, I hope you're gonna start today. All right, that's all for today. See you guys next time. Bye.